Minister, I appreciate you being here in person to discuss this issue. As you know, I've been raising issues of crime and criminality and antisocial behaviour on Dublin's north side for at least a year now, and I've had disappointing responses from yourself and from your offices, I feel. We've had a shooting and a pipe bomb incident, we've had the shooting incident outside Dunamede Shopping Centre, and now there is great, I suppose, media interest and the focus on the area because you've had 3 murders in the last week. What I am asking you is what is the government's response to this going to be? In fairness to your government, when there was a similar situation in the North Inner City, there was a very high-level response from government. There was a number of meetings with a number of stakeholders that took place in St Lawrence O'Toole's school at that time. There was a very hands-on approach from government at that time, and the Mulvey report was commissioned and it's still being implemented. So it wasn't just a policing response, it was discussed, the discussions took place with various different agencies involved in youth empowerment and anti-poverty measures. So, Minister, I want to know what is the response to this situation? Will you and your government engage in a type of Mulvey-style report for the Dublin 17 and wider area? Are you aware that a neighbouring community is due to expand its population to 50,000 and a campaign for a Garda station is part of the solution they see to basic infrastructure? Will you sit down with Spear 17 youth services, with the Preparing for Life group in Darndale, who are making fantastic inroads into parental empowerment in that area and having huge successes? Other agencies such as RASP, Drug Services, Doris Bui, Northside Partnership, all of these people have things to say. I spoke to 2 school principals over the last number of days who are worried about the long-term impact this is going to have on children in the immediate area when this becomes normalised. They walk past Garda tape, they walk past dead bodies, they hear gunshots. This is not normal, and it can't be seen to be normal. And we have a responsibility to the future of these children, that they feel that the hand of the state is lifting them up. Then when something like this happens, the state will intervene, the state will show that it cares, and it is political and governmental leadership. So what I'm asking you, Minister, with the greatest of respect, could your government please recognise that there is a problem in this side of the city, that it is spiralling completely and utterly out of control, that it is the responsibility of you and the Taoiseach and your government to show the way, to show leadership, to be in these communities and talking to the people who care passionately about them, because we are losing the battle. We are losing the battle because the sad thing is, and you know this possibly as well as I do, why is it that a young man is, and generally it's young men, are only too willing to take the place of those who have just been murdered? So we have to change our drug policy. I believe we have to change our policing policy in that side of the city. We have the resources, but we also have to talk about youth empowerment. So, Minister, I'm asking you to set in train with the Taoiseach and all others who have influence in this area to commission a Mulvey-style report for the Dublin 17 and wider communities, so that investment can start flowing, so that policing can start being enhanced, and so that we don't have a return to this type of bloodshed that we've seen over the last week.
Minister. First instance, that's Concordia. I want to repeat my total condemnation of the appalling violence that has been perpetrated in recent days. I've been in touch with the Garda Commissioner. I've spoken to Deputy Commissioner John Toomey, who is leading the investigation on the ground. I'm satisfied that vigorous Garda investigations are underway in the area. Indeed, furthermore, local patrols are being supplemented by armed support units. There is ongoing liaison and support being provided by relevant sections within other specialist divisions of An Garda Síochána. Gardaí have put specific operations in place to deal with the serious incidents that have occurred in the area recently. They are continuing to work directly with communities to keep our citizens safe. In relation to the killing that occurred on Tuesday afternoon, an incident room has been established at Santry Garda Station, and I am appealing to anybody who may have any information, no matter how seemingly incidental, to come forward and work with An Garda Síochána. Indeed, this morning, Deputy Garda Commissioner for Policing and Security, John Toomey, will convene a high-level meeting to further discuss policing plans to address the shootings in the area. I have requested that I be kept apprised of all developments in relation to this matter. I will be visiting the area in the coming days. In relation to the Senator's proposals, in the first instance, I want to emphasise that An Garda Síochána's approach responds to the presence of a relatively small number of violent criminals in some communities, includes a strong focus on quality of life issues, collaboration with local authorities, with joint policing committees, with local drug task forces. However, as we all acknowledge, a more sustainable, coordinated and comprehensive approach is needed. That was a clear message delivered by the expert members of the Commission on the Future of Policing in Ireland. It is clear from that report that the message was understood and responded to in the matter of the recommendations. In particular, the Commission examined the incidents in the North East inner city and subsequent citizen engagement in recent times, looked at how that approach could be mainstreamed and embedded. We all recognise that the reasons an individual turns towards a life of crime are complex, with substantial, unacceptable negative impact on communities. It is an appalling vista for any community to witness violence or criminality in their midst because of the actions of a small number of people. However small, we need to do everything possible to ensure that, to the greatest extent possible, we divert people away from a possible life of crime. Putting in place suitable interventions to prevent this requires a joined-up approach by a number of stakeholders, including An Garda Síochána, across a number of government departments, agencies, NGOs, families, and of course members of the wider public. I point to the Commission on the Future of Policing in Ireland, recognising this as a reality. As Senator is only too aware, a very significant proportion of police time in Ireland and in other jurisdictions is spent on harm prevention, providing service to citizens at risk, including those with addiction issues. I know the Senator has been a strong advocate for such persons in recent times. The new model of policing put forward by the Commission on the Future of Policing in Ireland envisages a new district approach to policing with significant community engagement, including the creation of multi-agency crisis intervention teams across all Garda divisions. These teams and the broader concept of community safety will be embedded in legislation in the new Policing and Community Safety Bill, which is currently being progressed in my department as a matter of urgent priority. I look forward to the Senator's input into that legislation in due course, or indeed any member of Shannon Éireann. I would be very happy to engage with them, receive their observations, comments or submissions. But the critical aspect of the Commission on the Future of Policing is that it has designed a model for policing excellence for the future. This is an approach that will make a real difference to communities. This is the sustainable solution for the future of all communities. I want again to assure Senators of the active Garda investigations underway this morning as we speak. I can assure the Senator that An Garda Síochána is taking all the necessary steps to bring the perpetrators of the recent shootings in Dublin to justice. Indeed, this Government will continue to support the Garda Síochána through the allocation of unprecedented resources in terms of personnel, in terms of technology, in terms of everything else, so that they can continue to carry out their duties, the fundamental role of which is the protection of communities.
Thank you, Minister. Supplementary, Senator.
Thank you for your response. Minister, will you commit to extra Garda resources for this area? Will you commit to the establishment of a commission along the lines of which I have suggested and which I feel in your response you have touched upon, but not gone as far as what took place in the North Inner City? I am suggesting a Mulvey-style report which will deal with all the agencies that you have outlined here. You are suggesting that the Commission on the Future of Policing is the answer. I am suggesting something different. Your government is already engaged in such a process in the North Inner City. I am asking you to engage, to initiate that process in the Dublin 17 and wider areas. I need to know, in stark terms, Minister, are you making more Garda resources available to this immediate area, and are you going to lead the process with other government ministers for a commission of a report into and the needs, the resources, a long-term response for what has happened in the Dublin 17 area. Will you commit to those two things, Minister, please, on behalf of those who are suffering and who feel more than just uneasy, who feel scared, living in the communities in which they live?
I wish to assure Senator O'Riordan that I will continue to engage with my government colleagues. In particular, this issue was raised at a recent government meeting. I've spoken directly to Minister Bruton. I've spoken directly to Minister Finian McGrath, who, like Senator O'Riordan, have a considerable knowledge of the area and its people and the community. And yes, I would be happy to continue to engage with other government departments in order to ensure that the type of collaborative approach, as has been proposed by the Senator, can be progressed, taking a note of the issues that the Senator has raised. My department is actively working on draft new policing legislation, which will ensure that the broader concept of community safety will be embedded in statute. And key to this is policing in partnership with communities and with other departments and with other agencies, not solely those under the remit of the Department of Justice, who provide essential services and supports to communities. I'm thinking of agencies under the Department of Health. I'm thinking of the Department of Social Protection. I'm thinking of the Department of Housing and Planning. I'm thinking of ensuring, I'm anxious to ensure, that there will be a collaborative approach across agencies, involving in particular those who provide essential services and essential supports to communities and individuals at risk. And in that regard, I acknowledge what the Senator has said, as well as the Government accepting all of the 157 key recommendations of the Commission on Future Policing report last December. I also published a 4-year high-level plan, Policing Service for the Future. This sets out the approach to the implementation, which will be overseen and is currently overseen by a dedicated programme office in the Department of the Taoiseach, which is a key recommendation in the report of the Commission. Another key element of the implementation is to ensure that local frontline policing will be placed at the core of the police service. This brings me to the second point, the Senator, in terms of Garda numbers and Garda resources. The object of the exercise being that Gardaí are more visible in communities and therefore more active in communities. And I remain committed to achieving an increase in the overall Garda workforce of 21,000 personnel by the year 2021, which will involve 15,000 sworn Garda members. In fact, I look forward to attending at the Garda College in Templemore next week, where we will see a further 200 young, ambitious, energetic Gardaí engaged in active duties within a period of 2 weeks of their graduation. I would be happy to continue to engage with Garda management on the particular issue as raised by the Senator, and I trust that he will do so also through such bodies as the Joint Policing Committee in the area. So I want to assure the Senator, I want to assure members of this House that the State will continue to relentlessly pursue those who engage in criminality that threaten the safety of communities. I wish to send a message from here that the full force of the law will be brought to bear on those behind this violence and related gangland activities, and I would be happy to engage further with the Senator in the matter of the specific proposal he's put forward this morning.